So today we will be looking into chapter 4, which is the foundation of employee motivation. Right now, this chapter is going to be all about motivation. Right. So whenever we are doing something, or whenever we are doing a task, or whenever we are doing a work, we always wanted to have motivation. Right. So this motivation is the one that will ensure that you are able to conduct each and every task that you wanted to do, as well as this is going to be the push factor that will allow you to further excel in your life, right? So this motivation is something that will allow employees to excel. It will give you the right career track. Which path are you going to go, right? And it will give you breaks and relaxation, give credit as well as incentive. Right now, when you speak about motivation, it is not only always about money, right? People wanted a lot of different kind of motivation, and the main one is that people need to recognize you, right? Whatever work that you do, people need to appreciate, or your managers or your leaders should be able to appreciate what you are giving to the company, right? They need to give you credit and give you recognition. And certain people, they will prefer motivation in terms of incentive, which means that whenever you get a job done, then they give you some kind of reward, some kind of monetary reward, so that you feel more empowered to do that particular task, right? So in this chapter, we will look into different kind of a perspective on an employee motivation, right? So this motivation, the main thing is that you need to know the definition, right? So motivation is the forces within a person that affect the direction, intensity, and persistence of voluntary behavior, right? Now, when we speak about motivation, it is something that is within yourself, right? It is something that will force you within yourself when you get the a particular recognition, or particular rewards, or particular breakthrough, right? So it will always assert you, or it will always motivate you to go further in your life, right? And we have three main components here, which is intensity, persistence, as also direction, right? So when you are going through the path, you are going through the progress, right? You need to ensure that you have persistence, right? Whenever, let's say, you say that you wanted to get an A for this particular subject, right? So if you wanted to get A, you must be consistently coming to it, to the class. You must always do your works, you must always complete your tutorials, you must do your assignment in a way that you can gain a lot of marks, right? So it is a um persistent process, right? You cannot be, okay, I wanted to get A in the first class, you have that intention, but it throughout the weeks, and when it comes to week 9, week 10, you lose the motivation. It cannot be that way. And that is why we have a lot of rewards, right? We have bonus marks. All this is to keep you motivated, to ensure that your spirit is up, to excel in whatever that you do, right? So that is exacting a particular effort level with the context of intensity, and for a certain amount of time, which is persistent, right? You need to ensure that you are doing it for a multiple occasion in a regular time period, right? You need to ensure that it is consistent toward a particular goal, right? You need to know what is your direction. You receive the you are going to put in the effort for a certain period of time towards the goal that you are trying to achieve, right? So when we speak about that, we have the Maslow's theory, right? So this theory is something that I believe that you have already seen before in various different subjects, right? But the main idea is Maslow's hierarchy of needs. We call this as Maslow's hierarchy of need, right? The theory is that each of us have different kind of motivation in life, right? So each and every people are entirely different. My motivation might be different, your motivation might be different. Each of us has different differences in terms of what we want for our life, right? So this Maslow's hierarchy of needs ensures that, or it asserts that we have psychological needs in the bottom, right? And then we have the not psychological, physiological needs at the bottom, right? And then we have the safety, belongingness, esteem, and self-actualization. right? Now, these are the 5 levels in Maslow's hierarchy of need, and this is a very famous theory that is used in the entire world, right? Now, what happens here is that they have stated it in the flow of a pyramid, right? That this is what people want. Okay, this is what people want, and this is where people start with. So they have kept it as if it is a level, right? So they said that the first thing people need is the physiological need. So let me see if we have here. Okay, no. Right. Now, physiological needs. I don't think so. We have this slide on what each of it means, right? So I will explain to you in a brief manner, right? The first thing that Maslow hierarchy of needs says is that we need physiological needs, which means that you need a roof on your head, you need food, you need water, you need shelter, you need the basic necessities. The physiological needs is related to the basic necessities. So what Maslow's hierarchy of needs says is that the main thing people need or individual or human need is that the physiological needs. They need the basic necessities. Then comes the safety, right? Safety means that you have the security, you have the protection, right? And then there is belongingness. Belongingness is based on the love that you get, right? You want people to love you, you want people to show you care, right? And then we have esteem. Esteem is related to the confidence that you have in yourself. And once you have all this slowly, right, you will come to the self-actualization, which means that you will reach to a point where you know what you need, and it is a point where you are able to perform in a way that you are going to be able to give your 100%, right? You know what is the need of yourself from the within, right? So this is actually the concept of Maslow's hierarchy of need, right? But what happens here is that there is lack of support for the theory. Because of what? Because people are very different, right? So people have different hierarchies and they don't progress through the needs in the same order. Like I said, what I want is something that is different from what you want, right? So we cannot have the same hierarchy. Maybe for me, I feel that safety is the priority, and then comes physiological, and then you may have the counterpart. You might say that no, I feel that I need love. Love is the main thing. Then comes the physiological, then comes the safety. So each people are different, and the needs change more rapidly than Maslow stated, right? So it is not a progress, it is not a process where we can judge based on a timeline, right? It is something that is has a rapid change. People change very frequently and in a very quick manner, right? So we cannot state that okay, this is static, this is going to be okay, 3 months we will want this, 3 months we will want that. It is something that cannot be quantified, right? And wrongly assume that everyone has the same need hierarchy. So that is the main flaw of the Maslow's theory, because you cannot say that each and every pupil are the same, right? Instead, likely that each pupil has a unique need of hierarchy shaped by our self-concept, values, and social identity. And the needs can be learned, strengthened, or weakened through training, right? So that is the basic idea of Maslow's hierarchy of need. So if in the question I ask you, okay, do you think Maslow's hierarchy of need is strong, right, or is valid, or is has a strong notion of a strong point, right? You need to be able to answer the question, right? So, and we have the non-executive level, right? Prefers physiological and security needs and job security, basic facilities or accommodation. And then we have the executive level, prefer esteem and self-actualization, challenging task recognition, and also award, right? So non-executive level is that you are okay, you feel that okay, once you get a job you are satisfied with that, as long as you have the job security, as long as you have the um the basic needs, the basic necessity is sufficient for you, you are settled in that way, right? Nothing is going to motivate you more. And some people, they are in the executive level, which means that once you have achieved the basics, right? Once you have the basic necessities, once you have your security, you wanted to go further. Right, you wanted to achieve more and more. You wanted to have challenging tasks. You wanted to have frequent changes in terms of your life. You want the recognition. You want the awards. Right. So these are the two different kind of people that you will see in your everyday life. Right. Maybe you can ask your parents. You can ask your friend. You can ask your cousins, your relatives, your family members. You can ask them if they are satisfied with what they have, or they are someone who always strive to achieve something that is even more, right? So you can decide also the kind of pupil or the kind of person that you wanted to be, right? And then we have the generational categories, right? We have the baby boomers, which is from 1946 to 1964, right? These are the category of people that now frequently are quoted as the boomers, right? So this at this point of time, I think this will be your grandparents. Rarely it will be your parents, but most of the time, or I believe lah, right? I believe that it will be your grandparents, right? So the generation born in the post WW2 baby boom, right? The baby boomers enjoyed free student grant, house prices, and they now hold the reins of power and have the most economic club. Right. And then we came to Generation X. Now, in the Generation X, they are also known as Gen Bus because their birth rate was vastly lower than the preceding baby boomers. Gen X are now becoming the helicopter parents of Gen Z, right? So this is the kind of people or the kind of individuals that is most likely to be your parents, right? So in this Generation X, right, you can see that they are the helicopter parents, which means that they micromanage their kid. They are very protective. They are very they are not like the older parents, right? They are very more of a protective kind of parents, right? And then we have the millennials, right? The generation reaching adulthood is in the early 21st century, also known as the Generation Y, right? Now, the most people that you see in terms of your teachers, in terms of your lecturers, will be under the category of generation why, right? The millennials, I believe, right? They have been shaped by the technology revolution that saw computers, tablets, and the web become central to work and life. And the last one, we have Generation Z, right? The generation hailed as the first true digital native or screenagers, right? They are not the teenagers. We call it as the screenagers, right? But um, okay, now even myself, I am under the category of Generation Z, right? Now, but what happens is that in the Generation Z, right, there is a combination of millennials as well, right? Because in my generation, in my era or in my year, right, it was the year where the internet was becoming famous. It was the era where computers was revolving. So that means that in the Generation Z, right, I think after 2000 or somewhere like before 2000, sorry, before 2000, right, they are people that is still under the category of millennials. So that is why when it comes to Generation Z, right, anyone that is born before 2005, before 2000, right, you can always see that they have the characteristics of the millennials, right? So this is the category of people, right? And then we have the three learned need, right? Just now when we saw the Maslow's hierarchy of need, right? We noticed that people often have their needs based on the learning, right? And the three learned needs that we have is the need for achievement, need for affiliation, and need for power. So these are the needs apart from the five needs that is stated by the Maslow's hierarchy, right? There is another three learned needs that is given much of a priority. Right. The main thing is that when we have money, when we have the security, when we have the love, the main thing is that we always wanted to strive hard to achieve. Right. Most of the time, when we speak about individuals, right? We wanted to achieve something. Right? It is very rare for you to see people that is satisfied with everything, right? But of course, there are people as such, but most of the time, they wanted to achieve something. They wanted to be to a certain position. They wanted to have certain things in their life. It doesn't mean that they wanted money. It doesn't mean that they wanted job. It doesn't mean they wanted something that is similar to you, but it is something that they wanted to achieve, right? Sometimes people are, I have seen people that wanted to be a housewife, right? They try to achieve to be a housewife. They try to be achieve to be a mother. So this need for achievement is very contextual, right? It is different for each and every individual, right? And you need to reach goals to take responsibility, right? Want reasonably challenging goals, right? And then we have the need for affiliation, the desire to seek approval, conform to other wishes, and avoid conflict, right? So the need for affiliation is that you always wanted people to recognize you. Yeah, you wanted to have the credit, you wanted to have um, the recognition from people, right? And then we have the need for, sorry, the need for power, desire to control one environment, and personalized versus socialized power, right? So the need for power is actually very high when you see people that is involved in the politics, right? People that is involved in politics, they strive very hard, and they are someone who looks a lot in terms of power. And the need for power is actually, it has the both positive as well as the negative view of it, right? But it depends entirely on the kind of individual that you wanted to be, right? Now, as I said, the need for achievement, it is to drive to excel, to accomplish challenging tasks, and to achieve a standard of excellence, right? For instance, you wanted to have challenging assignments, you wanted to go for your competitions, you wanted to reward for your excellent work, right? So this is the need for achievement. Whereas the need for power is the desire to influence and control one's environment, right? Example, offering opportunities for advancement and increased responsibility, right? Some people really love to become the group leader, right? Some people love to become the class representative. So this one is the need for power. It is not something that is bad. It is something that gives them the motivation, right? And they have the power to influence other people. They wanted to show other people that this is something that you can be, this is how you must be, right? They can set as an example, they can become a role model. And the last one is the need for affiliation, the desire for friendly and close interpersonal relationship. You wanted to have a positive team environment that is safe and respectful for all employees, right? So these are the three learned needs, right? Here you can see that this is the motivation, right, for you to grow further and further in your life. And then we have a four drive theory. Now you need to remember, right? This is something that you need to memorize as well, right? For your motivation, we have three different kind of perspective, right? The first one we saw on the Maslow's hierarchy of needs, the Maslow's theory, right? The second one we saw the three learned theory, and the fourth one is the the third one is the four drive theory, right? Now, what is for drive theory means that it is the drive that gives you the motivation to do something. It is the drive that pushes you to achieve something, right? It provides a balanced opportunity for employees to fulfill all four drives. And employees continuously seek fulfillment of drives and avoid having conditions support one drive from more than other, right? Now, in our life, we always have a drive. We always have a push, right? Each and every day when you wake up, there is something that always pushes you to go further in your life, right? So most of the time, it is based on this four drive, right? The drive to acquire, the drive to bond, and also the drive to learn, and the drive to defend. Now, what is drive to acquire? Drive to acquire means that the drive to take, drive to afford, wait, Okay, right. Now, drive to acquire means that it is the drive to take, keep objects and experience, and it is the basis of hierarchy and status. Now, what is means by drive to acquire means that you take all the experiences, right? You wake up every day, okay, I wanted to go to the class, and then you come to the class, you take the experience, you keep the moments, right? You keep the basics of the objects and also the experience there, right? And it is the main or the basis of the hierarchy and also the status, right? And then we have the drive to bond. Now, drive to bond means that you wanted to have a close relationship, or you wanted to have a social commitment or social relationship with different people. Means that this is not something in a bad way, right? This is something that you wanted to have a social identity, right? So most of the time you try to speak to another people, right? You try to make a relationship, you try to have a bond between them, right? We always put it as bonding, right? You wanted to bond with your friends, you wanted to bond with your cousins, your families, right? So this is the drive to bond. You wanted to have people that will stand behind you, right? That will hold your back for you. And then we have the drive to learn. The drive to learn is for you to acquire or to drive to satisfy curiosity and resolve conflicting information, right? So drive to learn and drive to acquire, it is something that is intercepting, right? Because drive to acquire is based on knowledge as well, right? When you go for experience, you wanted to acquire knowledge, and in the learning process you satisfy the curiosity and you identify, okay, this is lacking, this is something that I do not know. Okay, what is happening here? How does the world revolve? How is the earth how is the formation of the earth, right? You try to learn and you satisfy the curiosity, right? And drive to defend, the need to protect ourselves, right? When someone says bad to you, or someone says that you are not good, or someone says something that is not true, right? You have the drive to defend, right? You wanted to protect yourself, you wanted to be reactive, not proactive drive, right? Basis of a fight or flight, which means that here you are not trying to create a conflict, you are not trying to create a war, but you wanted to ensure that you are able to protect yourself and you are able to have a proper confrontation, a positive confrontation. So these are the four drive theory, right? Now moving forward, we have each of the example for it, right? The drive to acquire means that it is based on the rewards for excellent work, salary increment, bonuses, allowance, awards, and recognition, right? This is in terms of the workplace context. And then we have the drive to bond, right? Bonding with co-workers and managerial level, instill loyalty by organized programs such as birthday celebration, team building. And then for drive to learn, we have inspire to learn and grow, overcome challenges by providing training, program sharing session and conferences, and also drive to defend against the competitors, economic stability, rumors, and negative perception. Right? The one we saw earlier, the one that I explained, is more towards the individual perspective. But in the organizational perspective, right? You need to know when you wanted to acquire means that you wanted to provide the best work possible so that you are being rewarded. Right? You wanted to get the credits, you wanted to get the recognition, right? And when it comes to bonding, means that you wanted to have a proper relationship with your team workers, or if with your upper management, lower management, right? You wanted to ensure that there is a proper flow of communication. And you wanted to have the drive to learn, to have the levels of informations that is growing, right? And you wanted to defend yourself in terms of the competitors, instability, rumors, and negative perception, right? Now, these are some of the, sorry, these are some of the examples of pictures that you can see relating to the drive. Okay. Right. The next one, we have the expectancy theory of motivation. Right. Now, this is more like a framework. Right. In this framework, you can see that there is a few branches that is involved, right? From effort to performance to the outcomes, right? So you can see that from effort to performance, we call it E to P expectancy. And then from performance to outcome, we have P to O expectancy. And then for O, we have the outcome and balances, right? So what it means here is that when you are putting in effort, right, the effort that you put in will show a certain kind of performance, right? And this performance can be evaluated based on the outcome. For instance, let's say if you study hard each and every day, right? So what will happen is that when we are having a class, whenever I ask you questions, you will be able to answer it, right? So which means that you will be performing well in the class, right? So once you are performing well in the class, that means your first outcome is that you are going to have a higher CGPA, right? The second outcome is that you are going to have all A's in your subject, right? And the third outcome might be that you are going to be absorbed into for degree, right? So these are the outcome, these are the performance, these are the effort, right? Similarly, when you are doing it in terms of an organization, right? When you become an employee, you need to ensure that you are able to transit in that manner as well, right? So here we can see that there is an example, right? The position of a sales advisor. So what is the effort that the sales advisor need to take is that if I work harder, then this will be better, right? You convince customers, you increase sales and increase number of cars, right? So this is the effort, right? You are going to work harder and you are going to try to achieve harder, right? So you are going to convince all your customers, you are going to increase your sales and you wanted to increase the number of cars. So when you are going to take that kind of effort, right? That means your performance is that if I do a good job, there is something in it for me, right? You are going to be getting the top seller, you are going to be the staff of the month, right? You are going to be performing exceptionally well. And the outcome is that if you're doing a good job, that means that there is going to be a reward, right? You are going to get a positive reward. So that means you are going to get promotion, salary increment, free vacation, as well as rebate. So these kind of effort, performance, and outcome evaluation. So every time that you are going to apply for a job, or if you are going for your new job, right? You need to ensure that you know what kind of effort you are going to take, what kind of performance that you are going to make, and what kind of outcome are you expecting, right? Effort is something that you take, performance is something that you make, and outcome is something that you get. So you need to decide first, what do you want in each of the aspect in your life, right? So you can see here, right? This is something similar towards the situation, right? You are going to work hard, you are going to sell a lot of cars, customers are going to like you, and your sales is going to increase. That means your reward is going to be in terms of bonus, in terms of monetary rewards, right? So this is the understanding of it, right? And here you can see that increasing E to P expertencies, right? Assuring employees they have competencies, person job matching, provide role clarification and sufficient resources, right? So when you are going for a work or when you are hiring someone, you need to know how are you going to increase their effort to performance, right? They have the intention to make a lot of sales. They have the drive to have more sales or more more output. So how are you going to increase their effort to become a performance, right? So you need to ensure that your employees have the competencies. It is not only about effort, but you need to know that they have the skills that it is needed, right? And you need to ensure person job matching, which means that If this person is qualified under this category, then you need to have the job role that is related to the category, right? For instance, if you study administration, you need to be absorbed to a job that is related to administration so that you can utilize your competencies, your skills, your knowledge, and perform better, right? And for most, you need to have the role clarification as well as sufficient resources, because sometimes you will see that people will hire you for administrative duties, but they will not provide you with computers. They will not provide you with a photocopy machine, right? So what will happen is that you are unable to perform in the best with the best output, right? And then we have increasing P to O expectancies, right? Measure performance accurately, more rewards for good performance, and explain how rewards are linked to performance, right? So increasing performance to outcome means that you wanted to measure the performance accurately. So you come out with a Likert scale, or you come out with a KPI, so that they will perform according to how they wanted to achieve that particular rubric, so that they can be rewarded with the good performance, or rewarded with the credits that they require, right? Similar to your assignments in class, right? Each of the assignment, there is a specific rubric. So once you are done with your assignment, you cross check with your rubrics and you do an outstanding presentation, means that you will be getting more rewards, right? You will be getting higher marks, and explain how rewards are linked to the performance, right? For instance, in your assignment, you know that if you match all the rubrics, that means that your marks is going to be higher. So it is the direct relationship. And increasing outcome balances means that you ensure that the rewards are valued, individualized rewards, and minimize countervalent similar rate outcomes, right? So what it means here is that most of the time, right, you will give reward to some people, right, but they do not appreciate it. Because of why? Because most people, they wanted their reward to be in a monetary form, right? They wanted it to be money. Or some people, they prefer it to be in terms of holiday package, travel package and all this. But when you give them something like a flower pot, or you give them something like a water bottle, right? They are not going to be valuing that. It does not give them an impact, because the item that you provide is something that they will feel that is not of value, right? And that is why you can see sometimes when you give coupons, right? When people give you coupon itself, you will not appreciate it. You will throw it, right? When you go to the malls and all, when they give you any kind of physical coupons, or they give you any kind of pamphlets, right? You will often throw it, because why? You feel that it is not of value, right? So you need to know the kind of expectation, or the kind of rewards that your customer expect from you, right? And you, most of the time, we would suggest that you individualize the reward, right? Because each of them have different kind of need. So when you work in a company, right, you wanted something else, you wanted money, let's say, but your coworker, she wants to have a holiday trip. And then there will be another worker that would want some kind of benefits and added benefits, right? So each people will have different perception of the kind of rewards that they want. So you need to ensure that you have the individualized reward, right? Certain companies that are very good, they always have this individualized reward, right? Okay, moving forward, just a minute, give me a minute. Okay, the next one is the goal setting. right? The process of motivating employees and clarifying their role perception by establishing performance objective, right? In the goal setting, you can see that whenever you wanted to achieve something, right, you need to set it as a goal, right? Because each and every objective that you have is directly related to a goal, which means that this is the one that you are going to strive to achieve. And this is the one that is going to motivate you to ensure that you are able to strive hard and you are able to, shine better in your performance. And the goal setting, we know that when you speak about goal setting, it needs to be under this category or this characteristic, right? We often have it as SMART, right? The goal setting, you can use the SMART concept, or you can also use the concept below, right? The first one is that specific. And even in SMART, we have the component of specific, right? Measurable change within a time frame, right? And it is connected to goal details. And it must be relevant, which means that it is within employees' responsibility. You cannot give goals that can be achieved that is not within the employees' responsibilities or not within their job scope. And it must be challenging because it needs to raise a level of effort, right? It cannot be a task that it is, it is something that they do it regularly. It cannot be that way. It must be challenging, right? And it must be accepted, which means that the staff or the employee must be able to make the commitment and they are motivated to accomplish the goal. And it needs to be participative. And this is something that happens not regularly, right? Which is improve acceptance and goal quality, right? Because when you are more participative, you have constant feedbacks, you have more involvement, then it becomes much more easier for the acceptance and also the goal quality. And the feedback is that you progress toward the goal. And based on the goal setting characteristics, we have the effective feedback characteristics, right? So once your employee or once you yourself have achieved the goal setting characteristic, right, then that means that you are required to have the feedback, right? Now, this effect of feedback, it must be specific. As I said, it must be connected to the goal details. It must be relevant, right? It must be related to the person's behavior. It must be timely to improve link from behavior to outcome. And it must be sufficiently frequent, employees' knowledge or experience, and it must be credible, trustworthy sources, right? So here, as I said, usually when we are setting a goal in an employment, right, we will have something called KPI, right? It is called as the key performance indicator, right? Here in the key performance indicator, they will have a specific requirements or specific task that you have to accomplish, and each of the tasks will be different, right? But the task that is provided would always be between this goal setting characteristic, right? They will be specific, they will be relevant, challenging, accepted, participative, and also it will have the feedback, right? So all these components that is stated here will always be in the KPI, right? And this KPI, it is measured according to the system. It has its own rubric, right? And it is always related to the goal details. The goal details will often be that it is in terms of achieving the full strength of your employment, right? Or achieving the full strength of your job scope, right? So this is the main idea of the goal setting. And then we have the organizational justice. Now, as I said in the previous chapter itself, this is more towards the ethics and law, right? In the ethics and law, we have the distributive justice and also we have the procedural justice. Now, distributive justice is perceived fairness in outcomes we receive relative to our contribution and the outcomes and contribution of others. Now, procedural justice is perceived fairness of the procedures used to decide the distribution of resources. Right? Now, distributive justice, it is more towards the fairness in terms of the outcome. Right? If the outcome is good, then you feel that that is the right thing. right? When it comes to procedural justice, it is more towards the fairness in terms of the procedures that is used to decide the distribution of resources, right? So here you can see that this is something that we have gone through in our previous class, right? So you know that what is distributive justice and also what is procedural justice and the examples of it, right? So the next part is the elements of equity theory. Now, elements of equity theory means that each and every pupil have different kind of expectation, right? We are very clear with that. Each pupil, each individuals have different kind of expectation, right? Now, based on that expectation, there is a ratio that is involved. There is a percentage that is involved, right? The first one, we have the outcome input ratio, comparison other, and equity evaluation. Right, so these are the three kind of differences in terms of the equity theory. Right, so the outcome input ratio is based on inputs, what the employee contribute and what the employee receive. Right, so this much of input that I will give, this is the outcome that I will get. That is the equity theory. Right, I give 50% of my contribution, I get 50% of the payment. I give 50% of the I give 100% of the contribution, I get 100% of the payment, right? So that is based on the outcome input ratio. And then we have a comparison other. Now, this is based on person, pupil against whom we compare our ratio and not easily identifiable, right? Which means that you compare, okay, my sales was this much, but why is my salary lower? And his sale was this much, why his salary is higher? You compare with different people, and this is something not easy to identify because when you compare, right, you usually compare in terms of the percentage of income that you receive or percentage of benefits that you receive, right? So it is something that is a bit contextual, right? And equity evaluation, you compare outcome input ratio with the comparison of other. Now this is easier to explain when we have the example. So here you can see, in a while we will look into the example, right? We have the equity sensitivity. Right? Now, the outcome input preferences and reaction to various outcome input ratio. Right? We have benevolent, equity sensitive, and entitled. Right? Now, this is similar towards this. Okay? Outcome input ratio is being based on the benevolent, right? And then the comparison of other is equals to the equity sensitive, and equity evaluation is related to the entitled, right? Now, this is more towards the outcome evaluation, right? So in the benevolent, right, you are tolerant of being under rewarded, right? Which means that when you have the preference or when you have the equity tolerance of benevolent, means that you are okay if someone pays you low, right? If let's say this particular company pays someone with 5,000 and then they wanted to pay you with 3,000, you still feel okay, right? You do not mind or you do not worry of being under rewarded, right? And then we have equity sensitive, which means that you wanted the ratio to be equal to the comparison of other, which means that if this person get 50%, I also wanted to get 50%. Right? And then you have entitled, which means that you prefer proportionally more than others, right? Which means that you wanted to have more. If this person get 50%, I do not want to settle with 50%. I wanted to get 60% or 70%, right? So these are the kind of differences in terms of equity sensitivity, right? Now you can see here, these are the examples, right? The first one, benevolent, right? The tolerant of being under rewarded. So which means that we have Ravi and also we have Chong, right? So if let's say Ravi inputs 10 units of car per month, the sales that Ravi makes is 10 units, right? And the outcome that he gets is the salary increment by 5%. Whereas Chong is going to have the same sales unit, which is 10 units, and the outcome is going to be salary increment by 9%. So if you see here, Ravi and Chong is making the same unit of sales, but the outcome is different for Ravi, which is 5% increment and 9% increment for Chong. So in this situation, Ravi will usually be tolerant, right? Because he has the characteristics of benevolent, right? Which means that he is okay with being under rewarded. He knows that he can get 9%, but he thinks that, okay, it's okay. I'm getting 5%. No, it's never mind, right? They are being tolerant. And we have equity sensitive, which means that you wanted the ratio to be equal compared to the other person. So here you can see Ravi has 10 units of sale. Chong also makes 10 units of sale. So you wanted the outcome to be equal, which means that Ravi getting increment of 5%. Chong is also getting the 5%. So there is no differences. It is going to be equal in terms of the comparison. And the last one we have entitled. Right? In the entitled, it means that you prefer proportionally more than others, right? Which means that Ravi feels he is more entitled. That means that he inputs 10 units of car per month, similar to Chong. Chong also puts in 10 units of car per month, but the outcome is different for both, right? In which Ravi is having salary increment by 9%, whereas Chong is getting salary increment by 5%. So Ravi wanted to get more because he believed that he is more entitled uh, towards the job role, right? So these are the kind of people that you will see in an organization, right? And this is the kind of outcome that you can receive based on the organization. So sometimes there will be fairness, sometimes there will not be fairness, right? And it is all based on the justice, right? Which one do you perceive as fair? Is it based on the distributive justice, right, in relation to the contribution and the outcome, or is it based on the procedural justice, which is based on procedure, right? So this is the main idea of this chapter, which is related highly on the performance, right, and the motivation. So with that, thank you so much. If you have any questions, make sure to ask me, and make sure to do the tutorial that I will provide so that you will understand better on the chapter. Thank you.